Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy, crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello, freaks and fiends, and welcome to It's Alive podcast. This is a true crime, paranormal, interstellar podcast covering unbelievable stories that sound like they were ripped straight from the pages of a Hollywood script. I am your host, the outlaw Dr. H.R. Smokenstein, THC, and with me as always is my very own scream queen, the perfect combination of beauty and brains, bride and smoking in the heart, expert to grindhouse guts and gore, the gorge, the sexy body roll.
Hi. Oh, every time you do that intro, I feel like I'm about to get shot out of a cannon at a monster truck rally.
That's because I'm just super excited today like I was last week. Can you feel the energy off me?
I can.
I love this subject. This is
know
fun.
You do.
Right, let's not waste any fucking time. We did a lot of work last week. Let's get right back into this because we still got 3 more weeks of ground to try to cover.
We do.
We covered 20,000 years. Now let's cover the next. Was it 20,000 years?
20,000 years.
No, we only got 535 left.
Ooh,
and that's going to take
much.
3 more episodes. So it all happens in these ones. So let's kick us off, sexy.
Okay.
Do
last week we kicked off this series with the story of George Lucas and his obsessive dive into the hidden historical and mythological archives of galactic lore. Research that ultimately shaped the way we look at the history of the universe forever. What his research actually unearthed was an ancient metal disc known as a holodisc, and the information he claims to have received from that disc is the foundation for everything that we know today.
No, I cannot stress it enough. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, do it right now or you will be completely fucking lost. You will be sitting here like my dad trying to understand the plot of Inception. Like I said, we covered 20,000 years of galactic history last week, so it is vital information when it comes to understanding everything else going forward.
Yep. 20,000 years and we barely put a scratch on this story. It's like trying to summarize the entire run of Law & Order SVU in just 30 seconds. You just can't do it.
Dun, dun. Yeah, it's a tick series, and it's only getting ticker as we move into the last 5,035 years. So we finished last week with the birth of the Sith Lords and a serious period of complacency for the Jedi and the Galactic Republic. Everyone was just sitting around with their thumbs up their ass, thinking peace was a permanent state of being. It'd be nice if it was.
Yep.
Today, we are about to head into what is known as the Great Hyperspace War, which took place 5,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. So, you want to kick us off because, like I said, we got a lot of ground to cover this week.
Yep. And the last thing I want to do is stretch this out for weeks. And I'm pretty sure I'm already losing you to this fantasy world, if I'm being very honest. I mean, I caught you trying to use the Force to grab a beer from the fridge yesterday.
Worry not, young apprentice. I remain balanced in the Force.
Mm-hmm.
My mind is still mine for now. Though, to be fair, if I could force roll a joint like really, really quick, I'd never get off the couch again. So, all right, hit me with the lore. Let's do this.
Okay. Well, for millennia, the Sith Empire remained a phantom, a localized dark side civilization flourishing in the forbidden depths of the unknown regions, unseen and entirely dismissed by the core-centric Galactic Republic. The Republic continued its outwards expansion with the arrogance of a society that believed it had charted the entirety of the galactic destiny. However, this isolation was shattered by a singular, catastrophic navigation error. two hyperspace explorers drifting beyond the mapped frontiers of the Republic space formed a miscalculation that would become the most consequential mistake in history. Instead of being lost to the void, their vessel breached the perimeter of the Sith Empire. This was the moment the veil was torn. The Sith, who had been studying the Republic from afar for generations, finally had the catalyst it needed.
Let me pause you just there.
Mm-hmm.
Two hyperspace explorers just made a miscalculation. What the fuck were they doing?
Yeah.
You know? I guarantee you, one of them was getting intergalactic roadhead, missed the exit sign for Alpha Centauri, and accidentally crashed their ship straight into space Nazi Germany. Can you imagine that panic? Like, oh shit, we missed our turn. Wait, why is everything covered in spikes and red lights? But seriously, yeah, the Republic's totally ignorant here. I mean, we live in a small planet where everyone is under constant surveillance. We've got ring cameras watching squirrels steal Amazon packages, and we still can't stop fascist dictators from doing whatever the fuck it is they want to do. Now, think of that in a galactic level.
No, thank you.
Whole world's going to war with one another and absolutely no way to keep tabs on what's happening outside of your own little pocket republic. It's like having a gated community and completely ignoring the fact that a Mad Max wasteland is right across the street.
Exactly. Yeah. And how arrogant do you have to be, like, to assume that if it's not happening right in front of you, it isn't happening at all? I mean, surely if you know the history of the galaxy, then you're aware of the vastness of space. Like, it's that classic rich kid mentality. Well, my neighborhood is safe, so crime mustn't exist anymore.
Exactly. Which begs the question, if the Force is a power that can be felt and harnessed, do you think the Jedi purposefully cutting themselves off from the dark side completely gave the Sith a massive advantage over them? Like, by refusing to even acknowledge the dark side, they basically put blinders on.
Definitely. Definitely. Cutting out the dark side entirely allowed the Sith to plan and move with complete freedom. They could cloud the Jedi's vision and make the upcoming threat invisible to them. Like, this isn't an issue for the Sith because most of them have to master the light before they can even tackle the dark side.
So it's like a hacker who used to work for the FBI.
Yeah.
They know all the Jedi's tricks, their firewalls, their protocols, and then some.
Yep.
And the Jedi are fighting with half a deck here.
Yeah. The Sith's next move would be their smartest, using politics to gain power. And by their very nature, Jedi tried to stay impartial, only really getting involved in political matters when forced. The first Sith to realize that politics was the ultimate power was a man by the name of Naga Sadow. Am I saying that right?
Naga Sadow.
Naga
Sadow.
Naga Sadow.
I don't know. Ask George Lucas.
Excuse me.
So the center of this looming catastrophe, at the center of this looming catastrophe, stood Naga Sadow, a Sith Lord whose absolute genius lay in his realization that strength alone could not topple the Republic. He didn't just need big guns, he required the total synchronization of his highly fragmented civilization. The Sith Empire of that era was a volatile, self-consuming entity, perpetually paralyzed by internal rivalries and dick-measuring contests that characterized their governance. Their government. That'll do. Government will do fine.
Close enough.
So nowhere near like our governments. They're definitely
not at all
swinging their tiny micro penises around with their
Oh,
fucking
I can
trying
think
to
of a
see
few
who has
that
the biggest-
definitely have micropenis.
Who's got the biggest baby dick here? Trump, you're president.
Yeah.
Anyway, assassination and sabotage were not just risks of political life, but the very mechanisms by which authority was tested and maintained. They are basically the cast of Succession, but with lightsabers and more murder. Sadow recognized that as long as the Sith remained focused on stabbing each other in the back over petty grievances, they would never possess the collective force necessary to reclaim the galaxy.
So Sadow executed a masterpiece of psychological warfare and political manipulation. Utilizing sophisticated Sith sorcery and the deep dark side influence he had cultivated, he effectively bypassed the internal deadlock of his rivals. He manufactured a narrative of existential threat, positioning the unsuspecting Galactic Republic as an imminent aggressor preparing to descend upon Sith space. Basically, he gave them the Fox News treatment. He convinced them that the Republic was coming for their Sith jobs, their Sith guns, and their Sith way of life.
They took her jobs, fucking Jedi. So they went full Tucker Carlson on him. Are the Jedi coming to teach critical light side theory to our Sith academies? The answer might surprise you. By weaponizing the paranoia and ambition of his peers, Sadow transformed their scattered ego-driven impulses into a singular, cohesive momentum. He didn't just command the Sith to invade, he manipulated them into believing that a full-scale assault was their only means of survival. He pivoted their gaze outward, provided a common enemy, and successfully aligned the most ruthless practitioners in the galaxy towards the singular objective of destroying the Republic.
The Sith invasion of the Republic was a masterclass in kinetic shock and awe. Emerging from the unknown regions with fleets characterized by alien, terrifying aesthetics, the Sith Empire bypassed the Republic's border defenses entirely, striking at the heart of the government before an official declaration of war could even be registered. These were not mere insurgents or fringe elements. They were an organized, militarized civilization that utilized the dark side as a foundational weapon. For a republic that had spent centuries equating peace with the absence of conflict, the Sith were a nightmare made manifest. Practitioners who did not hide their connection to the dark side, but instead broadcasted their intent through overwhelming, overt displays of power. For the Jedi Order, this conflict marked the definitive end of their roles as meditative guardians. The sheer scale of the Sith military, synchronized by the ruthless directives of the dark side, forced the Jedi to abandon their monastic insulation. They were compelled to step into the role of generals and strategists, commanding Republic battalions and navigating the brutal calculus of total war. The conflict stripped away the political niceties of the era, revealing the war for what it truly was, a foundational clash between the philosophy of restraint and the dogma of raw dominance. The Jedi were no longer just defending borders. They were defending the ideological viability of the light in a galaxy that was actively being reshaped by the dark.
We can certainly relate to that these days.
Who can we?
1 minute you're trying to meditate, pay your taxes, and mind your own business, and the next minute some asshole with a flag and a superiority complex is kicking in your front door demanding you kneel for Jesus.
Naga Sadow's military genius relied heavily on the strategic application of Sith sorcery, a fact that crippled the Republic's command structure early in the war.
Of course it did. Most of the Jedi alive at this point would have never dealt with the dark side.
No.
They wouldn't understand what they were seeing. This is the exact problem with burying your head in the sand and pretending evil doesn't exist. Bad people don't just go away if you ignore them. They thrive on your ignorance. It's like turning up your car radio so you don't hear the engine knocking. Eventually, the engine blows up. And trust me, I am a repeat offender of the radio Band-Aid trick. Never fucking works.
Sadow utilized advanced dark side illusions to multiply the apparent size of his fleets, forcing Republic commanders to waste resources engaging phantoms while the real invasion force struck elsewhere. On the ground, the Sith manifested psychological horrors to shatter the morale of Republic troops, weaponizing fear until it became a contagion that moved faster than the Sith ships themselves. The Republic found itself struggling to maintain cohesion not because of a lack of firepower, but because their reality on the battlefield was being actively corrupted by their enemy.
So basically, we just need to round up all our street magicians, hand them some glow sticks, and send them to the front line.
Yes.
Pull a few rabbits out of a hat, saw a few ladies in half, do that trick where David Blaine holds his breath in a water tank for 3 days, and hey presto, war won.
Honestly, if they dropped Chris Angel onto the battlefield in 2005 with the eyeliner and the wallet chains, the Sith would have retreated out of sheer second-hand embarrassment.
I swear to God, we went and I was like trying to get my kids into magic, my eldest kids into magic. So we showed him Mind Freak.
We did.
From the early 2000s
Yeah.
that was on MTV. And although Chris Angel was a great fucking magician to watch, Jesus Christ, yeah, he's
Some
crazy. It's like
questionable
Nikki
fashion
Sixx with a
choices.
fucking magic wand.
And for some reason, Nikki Sixx is allowed to get it away with it, but Chris Angel is a
You
bit.
say so.
Leave him alone.
Just because you fancy him.
I actually don't. Nikki Sixx would
Tommy
not.
Lee.
Tommy Lee is a different story. But apparently, when I'm in front of them, any of them.
Yeah, you should have seen her at the Motley Crue concert. Vince, I love you!
Stop now.
Oh, God.
The turning point of the war did not arise from Europe. I'm really disappointed though we didn't get to see Mick. That broke my heart. Anyway, back to the war. The turning point of the war did not arise from a Republic masterstroke, and it definitely didn't come from Penn and Teller's trapdoor trick.
Trapdoor.
It came from the inherent instability of the Sith political structure. The same cultural drive for dominance that had allowed the Sith to conquer their own interval rivals now acted as a terminal defect. As the campaign stalled and the Republic's military leadership began to adapt to the Sith's deceptive tactics, the fragile coalition Naga Sadow had constructed began to fracture under the weight of his lieutenant's competing ambitions. Sensing that the tide was turning, Sadow's rivals chose to prioritize their own survival and power plays over the success of the invasion. As internal betrayal tore the Sith leadership apart, the coordinated threat collapsed, and the Republic pushed the fragmented forces back into the void. Last week we said it was a bit of a relief to see that politics and war isn't exclusively a toxic human trait, but now it feels more frustrating to know that no matter how far into the void of space you travel, you're still likely to run into some political incompetencies. I mean, they literally had the galaxy in their grasp and they blew it because they couldn't stop having, like you said, a dick measuring contest.
The ultimate villain flaw.
Yep.
Who's got the bigger penis? No. They're like a bunch of rabid dogs fighting over a steak, and in the process, the steak falls down the storm drain. You've got all these ultra powerful Sith Lords, and instead of just executing the plan, execute Order 66. Someone says, I want to be the one to press the big red button, while another says, no, I called it, fuck off. And then they all just start stabbing each other. You know?
Yeah.
It's like Black Friday sales at a Walmart in Florida. Everyone's trampling each other for a cheap TV instead of leaving the store and going to buy it online.
So because of this infighting, the Republic celebrated a total victory, fully convinced that the Sith threat had been eradicated. The Jedi Order, exhausted and traumatized, returned to their temples with the belief that they had successfully weathered the ultimate trial. However, history repeated its previous error. Just as they had done after the First Great Schism, the Republic and the Jedi assumed that silence equals defeat.
I love this. This is the classic mission accomplished banner moment. The Jedi are standing on an aircraft carrier in their bathrobes, giving each other high fives, completely ignoring the fact that the entire Sith Empire just crawled under the floorboards to breed like radioactive cockroaches.
Yep. They failed to realize that the Sith had not been purged. They had merely been forced back into the shadows to reorganize. By failing to hunt the remnants of the Sith Empire to extinction, the Republic left the seeds of its own eventual destruction scattered across the stars, creating the perfect conditions for the next generation of darkness to rise from the silence.
The Great Hyperspace War serves as the definitive turning point in the galactic history. It's the end of the Republic's age of innocence and the beginning of a far more sinister cycle of conflict. The Republic learned with brutal clarity that its borders were completely porous and its massive wealth was just a giant neon sign pointing right at them, inviting forces they didn't even know existed. And the Jedi Order, they were permanently scarred. The necessity of total war forced them to pivot from their roots as a monastic order peacekeepers into a militarized institution of generals and strategists.
I mean, you can't just go back to sitting cross-legged and meditating on a rock after you spent 5 years commanding battalions and ordering orbital strikes. Like, you've got blood on your hands now.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, when they're sitting on those massive rocks, they could just move other massive rocks at the enemy, and that would have solved the problem. They wouldn't have had to get their hands dirty at all. Just make things fly through the air. I
Human
don't know why
catapults.
they were doing all this actual hard. Well, I suppose if the other person can also do the same thing, they could stop the rock and send it back at you. I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's just keep going.
But the most profound lesson was learned by the survivors of the Sith Empire. The Sith emerged from this massive defeat with a cold, calculated epiphany. Brute force invasion was a self-defeating strategy. By attacking openly, they had only served to galvanize the Republic, unify the Jedi, and ultimately destroy themselves through their own internal competitive impulses. They realized that their greatest enemy was not the Jedi's lightsabers, but their own lack of cohesion.
Yeah, this realization birthed the era of the Hidden War. The Sith understood that they could not conquer the Republic by force of arms. They had to infiltrate the foundations of the civilization itself. They began to see that if they were truly to claim the galaxy, they couldn't just assault the state, they had to become the state.
So instead of kicking the front door down, they decided to run for local city council.
Spot on. The stage was now set for a more patient, more insidious form of warfare. The dark side would no longer be wielded as an invading fleet, but as a subtle wrath, poisoning the Republic from within, dismantling its institutions and turning its own systems against itself. The age of open battlefields had ended, and the age of long-term structural subversion had begun. They went from being Genghis Khan to being a pharmaceutical lobbying firm.
Fast forward to 4000 BBY. The Republic had entered an era of unchecked prosperity, and the Jedi Order had drifted into a period of extreme institutional complacency. Having effectively codified the light side into a rigid academic dogma centered on the library world of Osas, the Jedi had become more historians and philosophers than actual protectors. They were the victims of their own success because the galaxy was peaceful. They had convinced themselves that the dark side was a solved problem, a historical artifact rather than a living, breathing reality.
The Jedi went from being elite supernatural warriors to being those insufferable insufferable professors who wear corduroy jackets and elbow patches and refuse to grade your paper on time. They are completely disconnected from reality.
Yeah. Their arrogance created a fundamental vulnerability. The Order became less focused on the active, difficult practice of the Force and more interested in just preserving its legacy. The catalyst for collapse of this era was the discovery of the tomb of Freedon Nad on Onderon. Nad, a long-dead Sith Lord whose spirit remained tethered to the physical world, served as a necrotic beacon of dark side knowledge. When Jedi investigators breached his resting place, they didn't just find a grave. They unearthed a foundational blueprint for power that had been buried for centuries.
The Jedi had viewed these sites as forbidden history. But for the restless and the ambitious, they represented a path to mastery that the Order's restrictive teachings could never provide. This discovery proved that the Sith were not extinct. They were merely waiting for a host capable of translating their ancient rage into modern action. And that host would be Exar Kun. The X is S, isn't it, usually?
No.
Would it be Exar Kun or
Exar Kun is what I'd say. Kun or Kun? Kun or Kun? There's no E.
Kun, yeah.
I'd say
Exar
Kun.
Kun.
Yeah.
We'll go with Exar Kun.
Okay.
If George Lucas doesn't like it, he can ring me. Or so can Mickey Mouse if he feels like it. Anyway.
Exar Kun was the embodiment of the Jedi's failure to recognize the danger of their own brightest stars. His fall was not a radical shift, but a gradual, seductive justification of ego. Kun didn't see himself as a traitor. He viewed himself as a visionary who was transcending the fears of the council. By engaging with the dark side under the guise of research, he validated the very thing the Order forbade, turning academic inquiry into spiritual corruption.
I'm just doing research, guys.
Yeah, okay. It's like the guy who says he only goes to the strip club for the chicken wings. Nobody believes you. Ever.
I'm just saying, the chicken wings are really fucking good in there, man.
Do strip clubs in Ireland sell that? Chicken wings?
I've never been to a strip club in my life. Yeah, I mean, you can also equate him to a guy who downloads the dark web Thor browser just to see how it works. Give it 3 days and he's buying unregulated uranium with Bitcoin. So, I mean, it's definitely, yeah.
Upon fully embracing the Sith mandate, Kun transformed into a terrifying synthesis of ancient alchemy and modern martial prowess, manifesting the first double-bladed lightsaber and reclaiming the mantle of a Sith Lord.
So this is the guy who taped 2 flashlights together and thought he was being edgy, huh?
He absolutely was. He's the spiritual great-grandfather of the blade-heavy Sith. But his rebellion was not aimed at the Republic. It was aimed squarely at the Jedi themselves. He sought to replace their stagnant, defensive philosophy with a dynamic, aggressive doctrine of evolution. Now, if Exar Kun was the architect of this new war, a guy named Ulic Qel-Droma was the tragic casualty. Ulic's descent was born from the hubris of the noble warrior, the arrogant belief that one could infiltrate the darkness, master it, and emerge completely unscathed. He engaged with a dark side group called the Krat cultists with the explicit intention of dismantling them from within. What he failed to realize is that the dark side is not a tool to be wielded safely. It's a vacuum that feeds on the proximity of strong, unmanaged emotions.
Yeah, this never really works, is it? It's a classic Donnie Brasco problem.
Yeah.
You don't just go deep undercover into a meth cartel and not accidentally smoke a little meth.
No.
If you hang out with the cultists long enough, eventually you're going to start participating in the blood sacrifices, just so things don't get awkward at the company picnic. But again, this is kind of like this is something that we're going to see so fucking repetitive here. And it all just goes right back to the beginning. If the Jedi hadn't been so afraid of walking the line in the middle, we wouldn't have this problem of people feeling so restricted and trapped within the Jedi Order that they end up researching unregulated, unrestricted, unhelped, unsupervised attempts at mastering the dark side and end up falling headfirst into it completely. You know, it's like when the Jedi are forcing you to look at it as you're rather taking a left turn or a right turn, there is no fucking center. Then when you start studying this stuff, you are going to, and you think you're falling for it, you're going to fall as deep as you possibly can because that's what you've been taught happens in this scenario. No one's teaching you about a time where the Jedi had things balanced and had things on the middle. Yeah, there was conflict. Yeah, there was times where someone might fall one way or the other too hard and they could be brought back. But because of their fear of their first war, because of the kind of the PTSD of their first war, instead of solving their problem, they just sparked multiple wars, continuous wars, because they made themselves an enemy. And now we're going to see this over and 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 over again. Yeah, where one person will decide, well, I can take a little look over here, or these guys are restricting the shit out of me. And we really get into it next week when we start talking about the Skywalker saga. Yeah, that really is the centerpiece of Lucas's research and the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, and how he was really pushed towards the dark side, no matter how, mainly by the Jedi, to be honest with you, but under the influence of a powerful Sith Lord who we will discuss next week. But So
Ulic's pride and anger, which he once harnessed for the Republic's defense, were slowly turned against him, effectively shattering his psyche. Ulic's fall proved that the Jedi were absolutely not immune to the very things they claimed to have mastered. The resulting war between the Exar Kun-led Sith and the Jedi Order was uniquely devastating because it was, at its core, a civil conflict. The Sith understood the Jedi's tactical language, their moral weakness, and the precise ideological levers to pull to destabilize them.
Yeah, the climax of this brutality was the sack of Ossus. By targeting the archives, the Sith struck at the very soul of the Order. Burning the libraries was an attempt to erase the collective memory of the Jedi, forcing them to become a people without a past. This was the cultural amputation from which the Order would struggle to recover for generations. That is the ultimate Petty X move. If I can't read this book, nobody can! They literally burnt down the Jedi Wikipedia.
The conflict ultimately ended not with a single grand victory for the light, but with the total isolation of the Sith leadership. Exar Kun's attempt to escape mortality resulted in a horrific self-imposed imprisonment, trapping his spirit within the runes he had once tried to ascend. He basically put himself in an eternal cosmic timeout inside a spooky pyramid. Ulic Qel-Droma's fate was arguably more severe. Stripped completely of his connection to the Force, he was left to endure the long, agonizing clarity of his own moral collapse.
So the Sith War left the Jedi Order physically and historically gutted, forced to confront the horrifying reality that their belief in the extinction of the dark side was just a lie they told themselves to justify their own stagnation. They had survived, but the galaxy was now permanently scarred, and the institutional foundations of the Jedi were forever weakened. This war was not merely a military loss, it was a fundamental shift in the Jedi Order's consciousness, replacing their historical arrogance with a persistent, gnawing uncertainty. By witnessing the meteoric fall of Exar Kun and the tragic desolation of Ulic Qel-Droma, the Order was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. The most existential threat to the light was not an external army of alien Sith, but the latent, unchecked potential for corruption within their own ranks. The dark side had proven itself to be less of a distant enemy and more of an opportunistic infection, capable of infiltrating the most guarded minds through the back door of justified ambition and intellectual curiosity. This era solidified the concept of the fallen Jedi as a permanent fixture of galactic reality even. Knowledge that had been buried on a forgotten world like Onderon was no longer just myth. It was a tangible, reoccurring contagion, thank you, that could turn a hero into an architect of ruin overnight. Fuck me, why do I put these words in here that I know I can't fucking say? I'm the one that writes this stuff. I should be able to at least put it in phonetically, doctor. Put it in phonetically. Okay? Jesus
It worries
Christ.
me more that you're a doctor. This realization fundamentally altered the internal culture of the Jedi Order. The serene, unshakable confidence of the past was entirely replaced by a quite systemic paranoia. Every master began to look at their apprentice with a newfound apprehension, and every night, in their most private moments of frustration or doubt, was haunted by the same harrowing question. Could I be next?
The Sith had succeeded in their long-term goal of subversion, not by winning the war, but by permanently poisoning the well of the Jedi's own confidence. They had turned the Jedi's greatest strength, their dedication to the light, into a source of deep internal anxiety, ensuring that the Order would forever be looking inward at the potential for betrayal, often at the cost of failing to look outward at the threats emerging in the dark.
With the Jedi Order practically paralyzed by paranoia and internal policing following the Exar Kun fallout, the galaxy was left incredibly vulnerable. And this brings us to 3976 BBY and the onset of the Mandalorian Wars. The Mandalorians were not a species, but a warrior culture built entirely around conquest, combat, and the glorification of war. Seeing the Republic weakened and the Jedi refusing to leave their temples, Mandalore the Ultimate decided it was the perfect time to launch a massive, unprovoked crusade across the Outer Rim.
Yeah, these guys are the ultimate galactic frat bros. Their entire religion was basically just punching people in the face and refusing to elaborate. If the Sith were like a highly calculated backstabbing political machine, the Mandalorians were just a million guys named Kyle shotgunning Monster Energy drinks and throwing themselves into a mosh pit. They didn't care about ruling the galaxy. They just wanted to fight the biggest, baddest dude they could find to prove their worth.
So they were basically just space hooligans.
Yeah,
just traveling from planet to planet, asking people what they were looking at and then glassing their cities when they didn't, glassing their cities even when they didn't even get a good answer.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Republic Army was getting absolutely decimated by these cunts. They were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and being pushed back on every single front. The Republic begged the Jedi Council for help, but the Council, completely terrified by repeating the Ulic Qel-Droma disaster, flat out refused. They claimed they needed to meditate on the situation to ensure the dark side wasn't pulling the strings. It was the ultimate bureaucratic cop-out.
Meditate on it. Millions of people are getting blasted into space dust by guys in T-visor helmets, and the Jedi are putting on Enya and burning sage.
Yep.
That's the most infuriating response ever. It's like calling 911 because your house is on fire and the dispatcher says, "Have you tried deep breathing and exercises to manifest the fire away?"
Yeah, the Jedi Council was basically the UN with laser swords.
Yeah.
Lots of sternly worded letters, absolutely zero action.
And this inaction caused a massive ideological fracture within the Jedi Order. A charismatic and incredibly powerful young Jedi Knight known as Revan,
I think it's Raven.
Raven, refused to stand by while the Republic burned. He openly defied the Council's mandate, arguing that inaction in the face of such slaughter was fundamentally a dark side act in itself. Raven's defiance resonated deeply, and he was quickly joined by his closest friend Alec, who would later be known as Malek, a massive faction of the younger, idealistic Jedi who abandoned the temple to join the Republic military.
Raven. It is Raven. Yeah, definitely Raven. Raven is arguably one of the most fascinating characters in the entire lore, to be fair, though.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy who looked at the bloated, ineffective Jedi Council and said, "Fuck this, hand me my armor." He was a tactical genius, but to beat the Mandalorians, he had to match their brutality, and he understood that. He had to stop fighting like a peacekeeper and start fighting like a butcher. And that's the tragedy of Raven. He saved the Republic, but it cost him his own soul.
It's the age-old problem. You stare into the abyss long enough, and eventually the abyss starts asking you if you want to split a cab. Now, you can't roll in the mud with pigs and expect to come out smelling like Bath and Body Works.
Oh.
But anyway.
I like rolling with pigs.
The war culminated at the Battle of Malachor V, a devastating engagement that effectively ended the Mandalorian threat but permanently scarred the galaxy. Raven lured the entire Mandalorian fleet to the planet and just deployed a super weapon known as the Mass Shadow Generator. The weapon crushed the planet and completely annihilated both the Mandalorian fleet and a massive portion of Raven's own Republic forces. It was a victory achieved through an act of total genocide.
Yeah, Raven didn't just beat the Mandalorians, he broke their entire culture over his knee. But that moment on Malachor 5 is where the Jedi who followed him truly died. You don't press a button that liquidates millions of your own troops as collateral damage and then go back to a temple to meditate on a rock, like we said earlier. They like meditating on rocks, I don't know why. That level of trauma fundamentally severs you from the light side.
Yeah, at that point, you don't even get to do a half-assed apology tour on YouTube. You just have to lean in to being the bad guy.
Yeah, kind of be like Netanyahu and Trump doing that now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're sorry. No, all I can picture is the dude from South Park. The BP oil dude.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Following the war, Revan and Malek didn't return to the Republic as heroes. Instead, they took the remnants of their fleet and disappeared into the unknown regions, claiming they were hunting the true source of the Mandalorian provocation. What they found was the hidden Sith Empire, and in their weakened, traumatized state, both Revan and Malek were seduced by the Sith Emperor. They returned to known space not as Jedi protectors, but as Darth Revan and Darth Malek, initiating the Jedi Civil War.
Yeah, this was the Jedi Order's worst nightmare realized on steroids. Exar was bad, but Revan was the supreme commander of the Republic military. When he came back as a Sith Lord, he brought half the Republic's armed forces with him. It wasn't just a spiritual schism, it was a highly organized tactical dismantling of the Republic by the very guy who wrote their defense playbooks. Talk about an inside job. It's like if the CEO of Apple quit, changed his name to Darth Mac, and started hacking every iPhone on the planet just to ruin your life.
Yeah. And what made Revan truly dangerous as a Sith was his restraint. Unlike the Sith of the past who simply wanted to burn everything down, Revan wanted to conquer the Republic intact. He selectively targeted Jedi facilities, shipyards, and key political infrastructure while leaving the civilian population and industrial sectors largely untouched. He wasn't trying to destroy the galaxy. He was trying to forcefully reorganize it under his absolute control to prepare for a greater threat he had foreseen in the unknown regions.
So yeah, Revan was basically playing 4D chess with the Jedi Council, and they were still trying to figure out how the checkers board works.
Yeah.
You know? He understood that a scorched earth policy leaves you as the king of an ash heap, which is useless.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted a functional empire. Malek, however, was a different story. Malek was exactly the kind of unhinged, power-hungry psycho that the Sith traditionally produced. While Revan was using a scalpel, Malek just wanted to use a sledgehammer.
There's always that one guy in the group project who wants to set things on fire.
Hey, Revan, I know we're trying to be strategically here, strategically take over the banking clans and all that, but what if I just orbital bombed an orphanage for fun? Just one little one.
It's just poor brand management.
Malek had the energy of a guy who got promoted to shift manager at McDonald's and immediately starts yelling at teenagers for taking too many ketchup packets.
This ideological difference ultimately led to Malek betraying Revan. During a Jedi strike team ambush led by Bastila Shan, Malek fired upon Revan's flagship, intending to kill both his master and the Jedi threat in one cowardly strike. Revan was incapacitated and captured by the Jedi. So, after Malek betrayed Revan and he was captured by the Jedi, the Council pulled a move so morally questionable that it makes you wonder if they were even the good guys anymore. They didn't just arrest him, they wiped his brain. They essentially performed psychic lobotomy, overwriting his personality with a new, obedient Jedi identity.
Yeah, the ultimate gaslight. They took the greatest tactical genius in history, deleted his memories, and then sent him back out to hunt down his former student.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the government taking a super soldier, giving him a fake suburban life, and then activating him like a sleeper agent just to clean up their own mess, you know?
Yeah.
It's absolutely fucked, really, when you think about it. Not really a cool thing to do at all.
Exactly. And they call themselves Guardians of the Peace. Like, I call it theft identity on a cosmic scale. Like, they didn't save Revan. They murdered him and wore his skin.
Now we're right back into the fucking Sawyers. How did we manage that? Boy, that's the tragedy, because he was such a good tactical beast. Even with a wiped brain, his instincts would take over.
Okay.
He ended up doing the Jedi's dirty work, tearing through the Sith fleet and eventually confronting Malek. It was a mirror match where Revan had to kill the ghost of who he used to be. It's deeply depressing, actually, when you think about it. You're watching a guy essentially fight his own shadow with no idea that the light he's fighting for is the same group that erased his entire history.
After the dust settled and Malek was defeated, you'd think Revan would stick around to help rebuild the Republic. But he didn't. The memories the Jedi had suppressed started clawing their way back to the surface. He realized that the peace the Republic was enjoying was built on a lie, and that the true source of the Sith, the real threat, was still waiting out in the shadows of the Outer Rim. He was having these flashes of a massive, dark machine waiting in the void, and he knew that the war he just finished wasn't the end. It was just a skirmish. The Jedi wanted him to stay and be their golden boy, their poster child for light side redemption, but he knew they were blind. He didn't belong to them anymore, and he didn't belong to the Sith either. So he just left. He took his ship, left the Republic to its own devices, and vanished into the unknown regions to face whatever was waiting for him out there.
Imagine being the guy who saved the entire galaxy twice, having the government treat you like a programmable asset, and then just deciding, you know what? Fuck all of you. I'm out. He basically went like full Ron Swanson. I have been a hero. I have been a villain. And now I'm going into the woods to be left alone.
Yeah, it's the ultimate peace out move. But that departure is exactly why the galaxy was doomed. Without his tactical mind to hold the line, the Republic just fell into a cycle of complacency. And the Sith, the real ones, the ones lurking in the dark, were finally free to start grooming their next set of pawns. After Revan vanished into the void, the remnants of the Sith Empire immediately splintered into warring factions.
Yep. Classic Sith problem. You put 3 of them in a room, and within 5 minutes, 2 of them are dead, and the third is complaining about the lighting.
Out of this absolute dumpster fire of infighting emerged what is known as the Sith Triumvirate.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Thought you knew more about this than me.
Yeah, but even I struggled when I was trying to read that fucking word.
Triumvirate.
It's Lucas's word.
Triumvirate, maybe.
Triumvirate. Well, it means tree. Okay, so figure it out from there. There's 3 Sith this time.
Oh.
3 leaders anyway.
And if you thought Malek was a psycho, these 3 made him look like a camp counselor. You had Darth Traya, Darth Sion, and Darth Nihilus. And they didn't even care about conquering the Republic anymore. Their only unified goal was the complete and total extermination of the Jedi Order.
Okay, we'll break these freaks down, starting with Darth Sion. But I will say, if obviously they didn't care about conquering the Republic, if your name is Darth Nihilus, that should be a fucking pretty big hint as to what your mental state is like. Nihilistic, I would guess.
Yep.
So we will start with Darth Sion. His title was the Lord of Pain. Oh yeah, sounds like a wrestler. Which sounds like an edgy MySpace handle from 2006, but he actually lived up to it. Sion was essentially a walking corpse. He had been struck down in battle so many times that his body was literally decomposing, but he was so violently pissed off that his pure hatred and connection to the dark side held his rotting flesh together.
Yeah, he's the ultimate example of a guy who's literally too angry to die. He's like that one guy at the bar who gets knocked out by the bouncer, thrown into a dumpster, and 5 minutes later he's back at the front door demanding his half-finished drink. Like, you can't negotiate with a guy who uses his own fractured spine as a feature rather than a bug.
Right. Then there's Darth Nihilus, the Lord of Hunger. This guy is arguably the most terrifying entity in the entire Lucas lore. Nihilus didn't want to rule the galaxy. He didn't care about politics. He didn't even give a shit about the Sith code. He was basically a sentient black hole. He literally consumed the force energy of entire planets just to sustain himself. He was a galactic tapeworm in a cool mask. Imagine having the cosmic munchies so bad that you just park your ship over a planet of billions of people, slurp up their life force like a giant intergalactic Capri Sun, and then move on to the next one. It's not even malicious at that point. It's just incredibly aggressive snacking. He completely wiped out the Miraluka homeworld, a planet of naturally force-sensitive beings, just because his stomach was rumbling.
And pulling the strings behind these 2 walking disasters was Darth Traya, the Lord of Betrayal. Traya was actually a former Jedi historian who got kicked out of the Order for basically asking too many annoying questions.
Yeah. to the ultimate bitter bomber professor who who got denied tenure and decides to burn the entire university to the ground.
Yep.
She viewed the Force itself, both light and dark, as a cruel god that manipulated sentient life, and her grand master plan was to create an echo in the Force so massive that it would kill the Force entirely.
So her solution to the galaxy's problem was just to unplug the universe's router permanently. So it's quite incredibly petty, but you have to admire the scale of the spite.
Or was her plan just to eliminate religion, to eliminate war and problems between different cultures?
Which is kind of good thinking.
Anyhow.
Under the Triumvirate, is what I'm going to call it, the Jedi Order was hunted to near total extinction. And this was the first Jedi Purge. And what did the surviving Jedi Masters do? They did exactly what they always do when things get hard, and they went into hiding. They scattered across the galaxy and tried to stay off the radar, leaving the Republic completely defenseless.
Little bit of a spoiler there that we called that the first Jedi Purge. But yeah.
That was one of the Jedi Purges.
And we will see as we go on, they do have a tendency to run and hide every time something goes wrong. It's actually hilarious how consistent this strategy is. Whenever the Jedi face actual adversary, their go-to move is to grab a tent, fly to the grossest swamp planet they can find, and live off of eating moss and frogs for 20 years while everybody else gets murdered.
Some people call that finding themselves.
The Jedi Council's ultimate defense mechanism is just turning off their cell phones, moving to a yurt in the woods, and pretending the rest of the galaxy doesn't exist anymore.
Oh,
can't handle this shit today. Just put it on silent. I don't even want to hear it vibrate. Just silent.
The Triumvirate era effectively reset the board. By the time they were finally defeated by an exiled Jedi, the Jedi Order was reduced to a handful of survivors, and the Sith were fractured beyond repair. This kicked off a massive 1,000-year dark age, leading up to a period of constant, exhausting warfare known as the New Sith Wars.
God damn, it's like us with World War I, World War II, World War II. Ever see that when the meme where the time traveler comes back in time? He's like, what year is it? Has World War II happened yet?
And then World War I are like, what?
World War II. So this 1,000-year war is where everything just devolves into pure chaos. It culminated around 1000 BBY with the Sith forming the Brotherhood of Darkness under Lord Khan, and the Jedi forming the Army of Light under Lord Hoth. Yes, the Jedi basically said, "To hell with it," and became the literal standing army again. They threw out all the rule books and just waged a brutal grinding war of attrition on the planet of Ruusan.
It was essentially galactic trench warfare. Nobody was winning. The Brotherhood of Darkness was failing because, surprise, surprise, all the Sith Lords kept arguing over who should be in charge of the mud pit they were fighting over. It was a complete stalemate until one guy decided enough was enough.
He was the Undertaker. But then they all fell apart once everybody found out that Undertaker and Kane were lying about being real brothers. Oh, they're the Brothers of Destruction, not the Brothers of Darkness. But they did have the Ministry of Darkness, so it all kind of works in. So who was it instead of the Undertaker that dealt with this?
Darth Bane.
Darth Bane. Did he talk with a funny accent, have a funny mask on his face? And
does Bane speak like Darth Vader? Like with the
Who's Darth Vader? We haven't got to that yet. They don't know about that yet.
Sorry.
That's fucking next part.
Sorry.
You're spoiling the end of the next
No, I'm
script.
not. You always jump around as well.
Darth Bane it is.
Christ.
So, Bane is the guy who looked around at the Brotherhood of Darkness and realized that the Sith were their own worst enemy. He saw that having hundreds of Sith running around was fundamentally stupid because the dark side is about greed and power. If you have 100 people who all want absolute power, they are always going to kill each other before they kill the Jedi. It's basic maths.
Exactly. Bane realized the Sith were functioning like a toxic group chat where everybody secretly hates the admin. So he manipulated Lord Khan into using a massive suicidal dark-side weapon called the Thought Bomb. It detonated on Ruusan instantly wiping out both the entire Army of Light and the entire Brotherhood of Darkness in one shot.
These motherfuckers, I mean, they love their genocide.
Must have.
Huh? Full-on planets get destroyed regularly
Yep.
with this shit.
Yeah.
So Bane essentially tricked all of his co-workers into stepping into an airlock and hitting the vent button so they could just, have the whole ship to themselves.
Yeah.
Fuck all you guys, you're out of here.
And from the ashes of that explosion, Bane created the Rule of Two, the single most important doctrine in Sith history. He decreed from that day forward there could only ever be 2 Sith at any given time. One master to embody the power and one apprentice to crave it. No more Sith armies, no more infighting, just 2 guys operating entirely in the shadows playing the long game.
Yeah, so it's the smartest thing any villain in this universe ever did.
Yeah.
Instead of fighting the Jedi with lasers, they fought them with patience.
Yep.
The Rule of Two forced the Sith to become invisible. They spent the next 1,000 years infiltrating the banking clans, the trade federations, and the Senate. They traded their armor for tailored suits.
And the Jedi, completely oblivious, went right back to their temples to pat themselves on the back, assuming the Sith were extinct for the final time.
These guys are fucking idiots!
Yep.
How many times you gonna do this stupid ass fucking shit? How many times are they at? We got him this time, guys. This is like fucking Wile E. Coyote and the fucking Roadrunner. It's really, oh, fuck me. Okay.
And this sets the stage perfectly for a guy named Sheev Palpatine, to walk into the Senate building 1,000 years later, shake a few hands, and steal the entire galaxy right out from under their noses without firing a single shot. For 1,000 years after Darth Bane, the Sith operated in total secrecy, adhering to the Rule of Two with ruthless discipline. They became masters of the shadow, infiltrating every major institution of the Republic, the Banking Clan, the Trade Federation, the Commerce Guild, while the Jedi Order grew stagnant, bloated, and increasingly detached from the reality of the galaxy they were sworn to protect.
It's kind of impressive, to be honest. I mean, the Sith spent 10 centuries playing the longest game in history.
Mm-hmm.
You know? They basically went from being a violent biker gang to a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
They were the ones pulling the strings on the economy, funding both sides of every conflict, and keeping the Republic's attention firmly fixed on petty trade disputes while they built their own private influences.
And the Jedi, they were just chilling in their giant space tower, drinking overpriced synthetic tea and arguing about whether or not it's proper to intervene in trade disputes. Like, they weren't guardians, they were bureaucrats in robes.
Yeah. The Jedi Council were basically a HOA board that would fine you for having the wrong color mailbox while the entire neighborhood was burning down.
I'd believe it.
They were so busy citing people for minor infractions of the Jedi Code that they didn't notice the literal Sith presence gaining power right under their noses.
But before we get to Palpatine's ascension, we have to talk about the guy who actually wrote the syllabus for the hostile takeover, Darth Plagueis the Wise. If Bane created the Rule of Two, Plagueis was the one who realized that brute force was for idiots. He understood that the only way to topple the Jedi wasn't to kill them in a duel, it was to destroy them economically and politically.
Yeah, Plagueis was the ultimate shadow CEO. This guy was a mon, which basically makes him the galactic equivalent of a Swiss banker who lives in a volcano. He was obsessed with the manipulation of midichlorians, not just for power, but for immortality. He was doing advanced genetic engineering while the Jedi were still worried about whether or not to allow marriage. He was the one who funded Palpatine's rise, bankrolling his campaign, bribing the senators, and effectively turning the entire political landscape of the Republic into a puppet theater where Palpatine was the star performer.
He's like that high-level investor who grooms a protege to become the face of a company. Like, he knew that for his plan to work, he needed someone who looked harmless, someone who could play the part of a humble politician while the strings were being pulled behind the curtain. And let's be honest, she was the perfect casting choice.
Absolutely. But the master-apprentice dynamic was always doomed because the rule of two is essentially just a race to see who can get stabbed in their sleep first.
Mm-hmm.
Plagueis thought he was untouchable because he had conquered death, but he completely forgot that the most dangerous weapon in the Sith arsenal isn't lightning or telekinesis, it's being boring enough to make your mentor fall asleep.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it went down, right? Like Palpatine waited until Plagueis had passed out after a long day of researching midichlorians and then just zapped him. Like, it's the least heroic death for a Sith Lord ever. It's like a world-class assassin being killed by a falling piano.
Yeah, it's almost comedic. He spent his whole life trying to master the secret to immortality, and the one thing he didn't account for was that his own apprentice having a flair for the dramatic and zero tolerance policy for mentorship.
Yep.
And I mean, you'd think he'd fucking remember that the rule of two requires the apprentice to eventually overthrow the master. If you have an apprentice who you know is ambitious and your goal is to master death, then surely not having the apprentice will be the right choice in the
But
in the
would
matter,
that not
right?
be a test as well for the apprentice?
I don't know. Palpatine, though, he was a little smarter. He didn't just kill him, he murdered the entire philosophy of patience and long-term planning, replacing it with his own brand of blow it all up if it's inconvenient.
Once Plagueis was out of the way, Palpatine didn't have anyone holding him back. He stopped being a student and started being the end game. He inherited the entire infrastructure Plagueis had built, but he added a layer of pure, unadulterated, chaotic ambition. He didn't just want to control the Republic, he wanted to become the Empire.
And the Jedi, they hired him. Well, they basically handed him the keys to the kingdom, that is. They were so desperate to maintain their institutional status that they didn't even question why this random guy from a backwater planet was suddenly the most powerful man in the galaxy. He played them like a fiddle. He stoked the flames of civil unrest, created the trade crises, and then positioned himself as the only person capable of restoring order. It's the oldest trick in the political playbook. Create the problem, wait for the panic, and then offer the solution that involves giving you absolute power.
The war was the final nail in the coffin. By forcing the Jedi to lead an army, soldiers created for the express purpose of dying for the Republic, Palpatine forced the Jedi to become complicit in the very systems of control they claimed to oppose. He turned the Jedi into generals, and in doing so, he stripped away their moral high ground.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking grim.
Yeah.
They spent 1,000 years preaching about detachment and peace, and then they spent years leading a war machine. They lost their way so badly that they couldn't even see the guy who was controlling the war from both sides.
Exactly. Palpatine was the one paying for the army, and he was the one arming the opposition. He was playing a game of solitaire where he was both players and the referee. He had the Jedi so distracted by the threat of the opposition that they didn't even notice the real threat was the guy signing their paychecks.
And the most ironic part, the army itself, the very tools the Jedi used to save the Republic were the exact same tools that would execute them. Palpatine had his contingency protocols hard-coded into their brains, basically treating the Jedi like a software bug that needed to be patched out of the system. He didn't even have to fight them himself. He just sent a delete command and watched the whole order crumble from his office chair.
When the dust finally settled, the Republic was gone. The Jedi were extinct, hunted down and butchered in their own temple, and the Galactic Empire stood in its place. It was the ultimate, perfect victory for the Sith. They hadn't just won the war, they had erased the enemy's identity, destroyed their history, and installed themselves as the rightful rulers of the galaxy.
People look at the end of this era and they see a tragedy. I look at it and I see a logical conclusion. If you spend 1,000 years building a house of cards, you don't get to be surprised when someone sneezes and the whole thing collapses. The Jedi didn't just lose because they were weak, they lost because they were irrelevant. They were a relic of a past that hadn't existed for centuries.
So the Empire wasn't an accident. It was the only thing that could have happened. Like, Palpatine just took advantage of a vacuum that the Jedi had been creating for 10 centuries.
Exactly. And that is the most terrifying part of this lore. The Sith didn't need to be stronger than the Jedi. They just needed to be patient enough to let the Jedi drown in their own arrogance. It's the ultimate lesson in why you should never, ever stop questioning the people in charge, even if they're wearing good guy robes and carrying laser swords. Because the second you stop asking questions is the second you start building the gallows of your own execution.
But we'll leave the deep dive into Palpatine and his empire and the whole legendary Skywalker saga until next week when we come back with the history of the galaxy according to George Lucas, part 3.
So, and that wasn't too bad. I thought we were going to be going really super long, but we hit the hour mark. Next week, I would expect us to probably go 2 hours, and close to 2 hours when we talk about the Clone Wars.
Yeah, probably.
And the beginning of what was prophesied to be the chosen one, Anakin Skywalker.
Okay.
And that's a tragic story.
I've heard that.
Nice. We kind of get the fall, I suppose, the rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker next week. And then the week after, we kind of get the rise and fall of Darth Vader. Spoiler, they're the same person.
Fuck right off. You just lifted me out of it for even mentioning his name.
Well, that's because we were waiting until the end. That doesn't really make a difference. But yeah. So come on back next week as we look at the Clone Wars and the rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker. And the rise and fall, or just the straight up fall of the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
But until then, if you want to hear more about the War in the Stars, then go check out It's a Live Action tomorrow on Patreon at the Horrorverse Network. Subs are only $5 a month with a 7-day free trial for all new subscribers. Along with that, you'll also gain access to some of our older shows, along with mini-shows like Mini Monsters and Real Talk with the Doctor. Like I said, this week on Real Talk with the Doctor, I talked to Mike Rock about his new movie, I Hate Found Footage. It is an awesome interview where we deep dive into Mike's very, very interesting life. And that's to say the least. That dude has lived. It's crazy. So, yeah.
And we also have the Friday Night Freak Show every Friday where we search for some of the darkest events to be caught on tape and discuss them as you watch along. And on Monday night, you can catch me playing some games and chatting with the Doctor with Play and Slay with Bunny Rose. That's 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. with the first 2 hours free on Twitch and Patreon. And then the last hour of Play and Slay after dark will continue over on Patreon for all our subscribers. So come watch, chat, and listen as we talk movies, media, and look up fucked up stories on the web.
No, that has been... We've been advertising it like crazy for the last few weeks, but it's been hit and miss for us at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of just trying to figure things out. And I know I said that last week too, and we're just trying to figure this out so it'll be the best quality of what we did. We kind of did a dry run of Play and Slay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize none of it was going to Patreon. It was just going to Twitch. So we had to kind of fuck around with that.
Apparently you're supposed to click start live on Patreon. But that's
and plus you were miles away from your microphone and I was way too close to my microphone and everything just kind of went to kind of shitting us that day. So that's the thing. Like, we just want it to be really, really good when we drop what we're doing. We don't want to be handing out. We're kind of like, we're 3 years into this now. Nearly 3 years into this.
We don't want to hand out shite.
Yeah, we've gone beyond this point of we're going to try this, try that. We want to come at you with something solid. So with the Friday Night Freak Show, I mean, it's not going to happen this week. We're kind of hoping for it next week because we are really, really trying to plan to make that special, make it good, make it worth your while watching. We don't want it to just be your standard watch along, average, standard thing. We're playing Slay. We're just trying to figure out the talking points and the technical stuff a little bit better, but we will definitely be back with that this coming Monday. 100% Monday night, we will be trying that again. Come watch us make a fucking load of shit out of it, or come watch us be successful. It's a toss of a coin. That one, we kind of just do have to kind of keep going until we get it right. But when it comes to the Friday Night Freak Show, we want that to be
chef's kiss.
Good, so we will be taking our time making that work. If it doesn't work, it won't air. So we'll just keep going with it and we'll keep advertising it. And eventually it'll pop up on your Patreon. Just wait and see. Also, you can follow us on socials at Alive Alive Pod and at Bunny Rose IAA. We're on Instagram and TikTok. You probably pick us up on Instagram easier. We post pics, clips, and updates on there. Most of the pics are of the gorgeous Bunny Rose, and that's also the easiest place to catch us too. And also, I'll save you saying this part. Most of those pictures on Instagrams are just little teases for what Bunny posts on Patreon every Sunday with Bunny Rose's photo drop, where you get those same pictures that are on Patreon, but more. And some of the stuff that they won't let us put on Instagram, and some of the stuff that got us kicked off of TikTok the first time around.
That's true.
But we're good at the moment. They're happy enough to let us through. Now all I gotta do, swear to God, every time they try and pull one of your pictures, and they're sneaky about it. We know you're up to China. Well, we know they're sneaky about it. They'll pull the picture, tell me that we can't have it there, and then all I have to send them is a message saying, this picture is an artistic photo with no nudity in it.
Mhm.
Everything is censored. It is done for artistic purposes, and I have seen women in less clothes twerking and sexually dancing on most videos on this platform, and within
Pretty
5 minutes they unblock it, but they do not push it.
Yeah.
They do not get any sort of movement on that fucking platform.
No.
It's like Instagram, well up there, and then you go over to fucking TikTok's like 4 views. Like, what the fuck? The video before got like 700, 800. The one after got 700, 800. Why did that get 1? Because China just doesn't want to argue with me anymore. And that's just the long and the short of it. So I keep posting them there just to piss off the TikTok people. Anyway, we'll be back next week with more Tales from the Horrorverse. See y'all then. Same live time, same Horrorverse channel. Okay, love you.
Bye-bye.